welcome to The Porch. The Porch is where I get to bring my favorite thought leaders, authors, speakers to talk about what matters most to them. And we know what matters to Robb: teamwork, trust. And this is what we're going to talk about today. I'm so excited to have him with us. He's an internationally recognized leadership expert. He's working inside of companies and as an executive coach, keynote speaker, podcast co-host, best-selling author. He's got amazing ideas that he's going to talk to us about today. If there was ever a time to hear from a leader like Robb, it's right now. Robb, thank you so much for coming on The Porch with us.
I have been chomping at the bit, for lack of a better term, of just being with you, being with the community. There's so much to learn. So even though I have a lot of my heart to share, there's no doubt about it, I'm here to probably learn far more than I am to give off. So, but no, don't worry. People are going to get a lot of passion today, a lot of life, a lot of vibrancy. That's just how God's made me. So I feel like I should almost apologize ahead of time or something. I don't know.
No, we need it. I love it. Please don't apologize. I think this is one thing that I love about you is, you know, you kind of lay out your story in the book, all in, but for those that maybe don't know you, you know, your energy and your vibrancy comes through in every decade of your life. Would you just share a little bit about how you got to this point?
Yeah.
And remember to talk about basketball too, because
oh my goodness. Oh, basketball will work its way in. Okay. So I've got to share this. I think a huge milestone moment in my life was I was 21. Just to let you know, I'm 45 now. Okay. So I was 21, heading into my senior year of college. I went to a small university right outside of Philadelphia. It's called Widener University. So I'm 21. I'm co-captain of the basketball team in college. And it's the summer before. And I start feeling like in my abdomen, really uncomfortable. I have this pain in my abdomen. And so I conjure up enough just to share it with my mom. Mom, I think something's going on that's just not right. She goes, let's go and see the doctor. And I was like, I try to play it so cool. I'm like, no. It'll be cool. It'll go away. Well, it didn't, Lindsay.
Yeah.
And I'm talking like getting in and out of cars, painful, going body surfing at the New Jersey beaches, painful. And so for me, you know, I was knocking on the door, going back to the college campus. So I waited until I got back. And at that time I need to get a basketball physical, getting ready for the season.
Yep.
So I saw a doctor. Doctor checks me out. Doctors are supposed to play pretty cool. Doctors and nurses, when they diagnose stuff. Well, this time doctor checks me out and says, listen, Robb, you need to get some tests done right away.
That's never good.
21. I leave the doctor's office, roll out about half mile across campus to my college apartment. It was the loneliest walk of my entire life. Ugh. I was numb to the world. I'm dealing with my parents' divorce still from high school. Now I got a physical problem. I got some spiritual problems. I'm a mess. And I'm thinking, what do I have, cancer at age 21? Like, what's going on? Yeah. Long story short, my condition went without a clear diagnosis for nearly a month and a half. I got CAT scans, MRIs, ultrasound multiple times. The doctors were not ruling out cancer. The mass was so abnormal. I mean, I remember journaling during this time, like, God, what's going on in my life?
Yeah, that's so hard.
It was like dark meets dark kind of season of my life. Anyway, I go in to see an ultrasound specialist at UPenn Hospital in Philadelphia that I had not previously seen. And let me just tell you, the doctor proceeds to tell me something that still to this day, I don't even have words that adequately describe it. Doctor says, Robb, you no longer have any mass. And I'm like, hold up here. What is going on? What do you mean I don't have a mass? I have pain. He goes, this is a modern day miracle. What you walked in with today, you no longer have after further examination. Lindsay, before this point in my life, honestly, purpose for me, the reason why I existed was winning the next basketball game, hanging out with the guys, having some fun, fast-paced life, everything like that. I come out of this big wake-up moment in my life. I'm asking a set of questions I've never, ever asked before as a 21-year-old. Who am I? Why did this happen?
Yep.
What's my sphere of influence so I could be of greater good? And it was an amazing time. So little by little, my purpose journey began. And little did I know, over 23 years later, I'd be helping leaders discover or rediscover the reason why they exist, only to see that infused into what they do within their organization.
Yes.
So wild.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
It's incredible too that, we look back at these moments. I can't imagine every day for a month, you sitting there, not knowing what was going on, just how grueling that was. Yeah. And yet in that grueling experience, you were transformed and you were made aware in a way that you never had been before then.
Right. And it's, it's when I share that story with people, sometimes people hear, and some people have had really extreme things happen in their life. Right.
Yeah.
And that's can be a wake-up call, but it doesn't have to be extreme for it to be a wake-up call.
Very
true.
There
can be extreme things that can awaken us, but there can also be subtle things. There can be just a shift in thinking. There can be a perspective today that we didn't have yesterday. And all of a sudden it starts to snowball in a great way towards vibrancy and sustainability in just life, because we know wherever there's life, there's an opportunity for reproducing that life.
Yes.
In another life. And that's a really powerful thing.
And you do have this, big energy about you. And you look at your life, you've brushed shoulders with the best of the best. That's your life, MBA. We could talk about all those pieces, starting 9 businesses,
I still think it's crazy.
So what do you think really does push you to the top? What makes you say, some of us were like, I just want to be okay. And you're like, dude, we're going to the top.
Yeah.
We're going to the top. We're not starting 1 business. We're going to start 9. What do you think pushes you that way?
I think,
or maybe draws you that way.
I'm a momentum person.
Yeah.
I think that every human being at their core, now some may disagree with this. That's okay. I think every human being and how we're designed, how we're wired, and what we're made for, it's for momentum, enhancement, movement, reproduction. I mean, the list goes on. Now, I know we like our rhythms.
Yeah.
And I know I like to be stretched, but not too much. That's what a lot of people say, right? I don't like to step outside my comfort zone. I think we're made for it. We're made never to remain the same. And that's where real fruit and abundance of fruit comes out of that place of purpose and inspiration. And it ultimately leads to impact. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah. So, this idea of, and I think maybe a lot of us have gone through this season too of, I'm going to change. It is time to change. I'm made, just like you said, our bodies are made to move all the way down to like our joint fluid needs us to move so that our joints don't get stiff. We are designed for motion. And it sounds like you really live that out in every area of your life.
Yeah, I do. If I stop stretching myself, there's just an unhealthy rhythm that begins to occur. Doesn't mean things are bad. It doesn't mean things are bad.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm stepping into who I'm designed to be. When I step out, okay?
Yeah.
If I speak twice in a day, right? I have so much energy that speaking one time exhausts me after I'm done, the adrenaline wears off, okay?
Yeah.
But if on occasion, I'll stretch myself.
Yeah.
I want to do 2. I want to do 2 because I want to see how I react, respond. I want to see the level of energy I have. How can I keep that in check throughout the entire day and not just shoot out of a cannon?
Yep.
And exhaust myself. So for me, interviews, you're on a lot of interviews. You have a lot of interviews. For me, I like the rhythm of 1, maybe 2 interviews a day sometimes or whatever, but sometimes I'll push the envelope, not too much, but sometimes. Why? Because it stretches me.
Yes.
And I like to see what happens in and coming out of the stretching,
Yes.
So, is that what you find? Is that what you find when you're stretched? Is that what you find?
Yeah, it's uncomfortable. This year as a speaker, we were supposed to be in rooms with audiences, which I know is very different than talking into a camera.
Yeah.
And luckily I had done some of that work, but I felt very stretched because, as a speaker, this, you fly into a city,
right? You
do the talk, you get back on the plane. You have over 24 hours before and after to kind of ramp up and decompress. Well, in this world, and I'm sure you're seeing this too, I might be delivering 2 or 3 events a day.
Sure.
And so the stretch was, can I keep my brain straight? Can I tell the same story with as much passion the third time as the first time?
Yeah.
And I had to change how I eat. I had to change how I do everything to be able to be stretched as a communicator that much. I've just never done that much communication back to back.
That's right. That's right. Now, I'll say this for me to dig a little deeper in there too. Yeah, the virtual and understanding that world. I, of course, have done virtual things, but not nearly to the degree I do now.
Yes.
And
Yes.
you learn, we have no choice but to learn quick, right? And so
Yeah.
in the midst of that, it's you pick up on things. And sometimes here's where it fits into the stretching. Sometimes even in a keynote, I'll try something new. Now, a lot of times it's like, oh my goodness, if I try something new and it fails, but I say it's worth the risk.
Yeah.
For me, stepping out and trying something new to where I don't have an amazing comfort level in.
Yeah.
It brings the kid out in me because now I go into exploratory mode.
Get to play. Yes.
Discovery mode. And I think that's what people need, especially in this time, Lindsay. It's like, we need to tap to the inner kid in each one of us.
Yes.
See that child arise yet again. That's what we need. We need to stay the purity in young children, the discovery, the exploration. And I think if we get away from that, we actually can start heading into danger zones.
That makes sense.
So.
That makes sense. And kids, kids do have that just ability to be fully present and enjoy the moment. I was with my third grader and we were making these you took a little bit of clay and you make a mini tiny cupcake and a mini tiny burger and you make a mini tiny restaurant. And, we bought it. I'm like, great, here we go. I'm going to have to be the one to help her. And then we got into it. I'm like, dude, I'm so into this. Look at this tiny hamburger bun. Yeah. And it's so funny, but to just have those moments where you get to play and use your imagination and use your hands and not be staring at the screen or worried about emails or whatever it is. There is magic in that. There really is.
There is. And right. It doesn't sound corny, but I'll continue on the point. I love still playing hide and seek with my kids and my nephews and you name it, even with adults for that matter. It doesn't matter to me. I love it because when you're in a hiding place that you don't think anyone can find you, just that, at least in me, I get a little nervous.
The thrill.
Hey, are they going to find me or what? I think I'm going to, and then all of a sudden they start getting closer. And then at some point you're found out. And even that, like the hiding, but yet knowing you're going to get caught. It's playful, right?
Yes, the playfulness.
And then you get found out, they find you, and then you kind of laugh and you celebrate that kind of moment. So you're spot on. I think it speaks to presence.
Yes.
And that, for me, has never been more relevant, more timely than now. During the COVID era. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah. And I wonder, as somebody who's been witnessing all of this for a year with all of us and with your mind as a coach, as a leader, what are some things that you think leaders need to grasp during this time? What stands out to you?
Yeah. I think leaving room for reflection. I know some of us are probably thinking, if I just have 3 minutes in the bathroom, that's all the time I have. I get it, right? It depends on the season and stage of life. But having intentional times to be silent, to soak in silence as much as we can.
Yeah.
And reflect a little bit. I call it look back, spend time in looking back, reflecting. Being present with what happened yesterday, what happened a few weeks ago, a little bit. Look up in the present moment. Thank you for breath. Thank you for life. Thank you for those that, God, you placed in my life. And then look forward and be thankful for what is going to happen a little later today, tomorrow, next day. And I just find that, look back, look up, look forward for me, being intentional, creating space to be.
Yes.
Is huge because that speaks to mindfulness. It speaks to presence. It speaks to life. So for me, that's one encouraging thing that I make sure that you see enough value in just being alone and being quiet and etching that in your schedule as much as you can and guarding and protecting it with boundaries.
Yes.
Yeah,
that is.
Yeah.
You can fly through this time. I know March and April are like a blur because everybody, we're just hustling, trying to adapt. And now there is this space. I think about winter too, is kind of like going into the belly of a whale, going into the darkness and allowing there to be space to reflect. I know I traveled to Alaska a few years ago, and they have like 24 hours of darkness at during seasons. And I remember feeling bad for the people in the village. I was like, you guys have 24 hours of darkness? That's horrible. They're like, we love it. We get together, we get creative, we get reflective. I was like, that actually makes a lot of sense. So I love that you're even talking about that there's a gift in the stillness that we can miss.
Yeah.
We can miss.
That's right.
You brought up this other idea. There's a couple ideas in your book that I thought were really interesting. You talked about honoring others. And I think about this with COVID because you talked about somebody in your book, All In, that really didn't deserve to be honored. He was kind of not playing at 100%. Yeah. And you said, I just decided I didn't expect him to be as involved as he once was. I'm going to give him some breathing, some wiggle room. And you said this decision freed me to honor him more for who he was than his contribution. Can you speak to that a little bit? I know we have a ton of leaders on here who are trying to navigate that.
This is going to be, it's against the grain, or it can be against the grain a little bit. So that's my disclaimer, Lindsay.
Yeah.
That's me. So sometimes giving people what they don't deserve can set them up for greater success. And what I mean by that is, we live in a culture, and not just in America, but I think it's just a world culture in general, of like, it's a tit for a tat. You know, you do this for me, I'll do it for you. You treat me this way, I'll treat you that way back, right? But all of a sudden, I've found one of the most powerful pattern interrupts is when someone treats you not so good. And genuinely, not with manipulation, but genuinely, not passive aggressiveness, just genuinely, you actually really hone in on the beauty in them. And sometimes you have to really look to find it. Our so-called enemies, or it could just be a team member that's rubbing you the wrong way too.
Yep.
And I have found that when we give people sometimes what they don't deserve, right? They're rubbing you the wrong way and you extend grace. They're talking a little about you behind your back and you continue to build them up. That all of a sudden, could it be by you doing that simple, but I'm not saying it's an easy act, but a simple act like that, could it be that could be the necessary pattern interrupt in their life to at least have them consciously or subconsciously question, why is this person really doing this? I don't deserve it.
Yeah, especially if they know. They know, like, if they're not performing and you're thinking, you know what, I'm going to send him a gift card. It's not always about them performing. It's about them as a human.
It's them as a human.
Yes.
And I think, I know we have a lot of HR leaders and executives and stuff that are part of your community and the audience and stuff. So, I'm not saying this is like a one size fits all. It's for everyone at all times. I'm just saying discerning and being sensitive in someone's life as you get to know them. Sometimes just giving them what they don't deserve. And could that in fact be the change of their trajectory that they don't even know is ahead?
Yes.
And that we can be a conduit. We can actually look into their lives and see things that they can't see in themselves, only to pull it out.
That's right.
So I think as leaders, as influencers in people's lives, I think it starts with us. I think that we've got to be aware. That's why I love EQ, right? I love that self-awareness. I love that self-awareness gives way to social awareness, et cetera, right? And so in that now we can be more sensitive to how we feel, what we're going through, but also our surroundings, the people around us, and now be more proactive for the greater good in that place, not reactive and pulling the victim card all the time.
That's right.
And so I just find that people, when they're in that space, now their ego is kept in check and they can operate and function what I call out of a higher perspective and a higher place. And that's the place where productivity truly reigns.
Can you say a little bit more about that?
Yeah. Productivity, a lot of times it's more from the inside. A lot of times people think of the outside productivity things, like what motivation employees and tactics to encourage, to spur on our team members, to spur on myself. I'm not saying those things are bad. I mean, I think that there's a place for them. We need the incentive packages. We need certain processes and systems. I get it. I help people with that too. But I think what supersedes that is starting in the mind and the heart of the individual. Like find out what inspires them. Find
Mhm.
out what their personal purpose is, what their passion areas are. And
Yeah.
now you start speaking to that person, right? Start speaking to those things in that person. Now all of a sudden they come more alive. They're more inspired, and true inspiration compels us to action. True inspiration. Whereas
True.
motivational ploys and tactics, more the carrot and the stick kind of things, they're more temporary. They're
Mhm.
not as long lasting, right? Again, there's a place for them.
Yeah.
But I just find when
Totally.
you're inspired, it's out of a deeper place, out of that spiritual place. It's the place that we start to tap into in ourselves and helping others tap into it, that now they're energized with this energy they didn't even think was available or possible.
Yeah.
And when we start tapping into that ourselves and helping others tap into it, now they're doing things that beyond what they were ever capable of doing before. And
Mhm.
if every individual starts to learn and understand that, and then now a culture start to be built around that, my goodness, Lindsay, like what can begin to happen as far as like team productivity,
Yep.
cultural productivity, organizational, it's wild.
Being that aligned. And you gave a great example. Again, simple but difficult to do. Once a month, talk to your teammates about their personal life.
That's right.
And I try to do this, but I confess in front of all of us here that usually it's like, how are you doing personally? Tell me about, how's your house? I thought you were getting the chimney fixed. Yeah. Okay. So real quick, we got this email that we got to send out,
Yeah.
and it's very hard to resist. You have to resist the urge to go into productivity mode, but there is this piece of real friendship and connection that can happen if we even spend 30 minutes talking about the other parts of the person besides their productivity.
That's right. I always say
Yeah.
it's like good organizations have a professional development track for their people, but great, dare I say, extraordinary organizations have a personal development track that feeds into the professional. And
Yes.
so taking that time, we got to see value in it first. And when we start to see value and we become more and more aware of it, now we can become intentional, right? That
Mhm.
intentionality is so invaluable. It has me thinking. I'm on a board for a company,
Mhm.
and I was on a Zoom call, and the board's there and a couple core team members. And the CEO of the organization is facilitating the call. And clearly I'm watching the body language of one of his core team members. And it was
Yeah.
not favorable, Lindsay. It was just not favorable. As the CEO, type A, going after the problem solving, in that mode, the whole deal, right?
Yep.
And I could just see it. And I have trust with the CEO that I stepped in, because we have that kind of relationship, personally and professionally. So I stepped in and I said, "Hey, Ann, how are you doing today? Like this is a really tough time with COVID."
Mhm.
And like, I didn't say, "I saw the look on your face." I didn't say anything. I just said, "Ann, like, how are you doing?" And all of a sudden, it only took like 5 minutes. It wasn't even like terribly long.
Yeah.
Her whole countenance changed, like someone cares about me.
Mhm.
And I just asked Ann, I said, "Yeah, if you don't mind sharing, like, what are some things that how can we help you? Like, what are some things that aren't going so well just in your personal life?" Well, her sister has cancer.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then there's COVID and the changes. She's watching her grandchild once in a while, and she's on the call, and, grandchild walks in front of the camera and she's embarrassed. And then her sister has cancer, all these different things. Right. And all of a sudden, just taking the time to care.
Yeah.
And it said to her that she matters.
Mhm.
And then I said, "Hey, let's talk about the problem now."
Yeah.
And she was much more like, now her countenance changed. She was much more willing to embrace some of the challenges. Not to say
Mhm.
we hijacked the entire meeting, but just the fact that we took a moment or two and acknowledged her and
Yep.
acknowledged some of the difficulties and were empathetic towards her situation.
Yes.
Now she was much more willing to receive the conversation and engage creatively in that conversation. So,
Well, and
yeah.
there is that piece you talk about this too, and all in is that, we are social creatures, and we actually need that connection with each other to stabilize our cortisol levels, to help our stress hormones. We really
Yeah,
need each other
we do.
to be able to, not feel like we're getting kicked out of the pack all the time. That's very stressful to us. So if you're in a meeting where you feel like nobody's paying attention, and then you've got all this other stress going on, it
Yeah.
is going to be hard to be present. and connect. And we do need to know as social creatures that people can gather around us, even just with empathy over Zoom.
That's right. Yeah. And it doesn't mean, you know, Lindsay, it doesn't mean that every team meeting has to turn into a counseling session.
Totally.
You know, because people are like, wow, it could be a slippery slope, or how do you know, well, hold on, we're still supposed to have some boundaries here. I get that.
Yeah.
But if we just want to be more human and we just want to relate that much better, let's get to know human to human, have human to human connection. And also for the business leaders, I know stuff's got to get done, right?
Yep.
At the end of the day, you maximize people's potential when they know you care about them.
That's right.
And so the more intentional we are caring and asking the questions, it doesn't have to take over the entire meeting. Now, all of a sudden, we start to like develop a culture and build a culture based on you matter, I matter, we matter together.
Mm-hmm.
And we're real people with real issues in life. And let's climb the mountain together.
Yeah, this is so important. And there's a step that you kind of share that's before we can even be human with another human.
Yeah.
You know, there's this spot in your book, it's in the very beginning, but when I read it, I thought he's coming on the show. And you talked about how childhood experiences shape our behavior at work and teams. And this idea that, you know, not that like we're like, and sign up for a therapist, you know, right after this call, but this idea that as leaders, we kind of have to process our own stories and our own lives so that we can be comfortable with other people's emotions.
Yeah. Let's be real. I mean, like you're bringing up something that's so good. And maybe for some, it's like the elephant that's been in the room with different teams and we all have stuff.
Right.
And I'd rather be for someone than being like, well, you got to check your stuff at the door. You're not allowed, you know, like get to your work. And I just think that like knowing that we all come from imperfect backgrounds.
Yep.
We all come from imperfect parents and people that raised us.
Yep.
We all have probably more wounds and hurts and pains than we like to admit.
Yep.
We all, I mean, the list goes on, Lindsay, right?
Yeah.
So
I'm like, yeah, Rob.
I'm saying, I don't know. Let's just acknowledge the obvious.
Yeah.
And let's invite one another into our lives a little bit more and get to hear each other's story, because each person's story is powerful and no one story is the same as another. So that could mean as practical as this. When you meet one-to-one or you meet with a team, like, all right, what's something new about you that I never knew or we never knew before? Now, we know team exercises, sometimes they begin like that, but what does that mean? Like, okay, I want to find out an angle on you or an aspect of who you are that I didn't know before. What are we really trying to do or say in that? We're trying to say, you matter.
Mm-hmm.
We're trying to say, I want to get to know you a little bit better. Because as I get to know you a little bit better and also let you in getting to know me a little bit better, there's an exchange of humanity that wouldn't be there otherwise. When there's an exchange of humanity, now we can be more present. The bottom line, and our stories are what bring that together. See, I can weave my story into your story. You can weave your story into someone else's story. And find out, oh my goodness, it hasn't been that easy for you too, that we feel like now we're a part of a much larger story.
Yeah.
And I think the average person and leader wants certainly to know that their life matters, but they also want to know that they're a part of something larger. And we're connected far more than we even realize. So why play the games? Why not be real and invite people into your life? And now I realize that doesn't come without a little bit of a risk. I understand that, because here's the risk, Lindsay. It's like, okay, if I share this aspect of my story, number one, am I prepared to do so? And second, if I do and I feel prepared, are they going to judge me or not? Are they going to look at me different after hearing the story than they did before? But I'm here to say, and honestly, if you can't tell already, everybody, I got a real strong conviction on this one. Life is way too short. And it's way too meaningful than to let this one bypass, to let it just pass by. And so I'm committed to it. I'm committed to it in my personal life. I'm committed to it with the leaders and the people that I get a chance to serve.
Yeah.
And I'm committed to letting other people with great influence, like your community, know about that too, because I just find that's where the magic happens out of that place.
Yes. And one question I ask every guest on the porch is, a childhood experience that shaped you, because you can feel the shift, even with people just watching, seeing a leader model this. And it doesn't have to be the most traumatic story. It doesn't have to be the best story, but just a story. Can you share one other story with us, maybe from your childhood, that has shaped you today?
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, what comes to my mind right away,
Mm-hmm.
my parents got divorced when I was in high school. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
From the outside, it looked like a really awesome family, no dysfunction. Not, nice picture painted on the outside, but the inside, this middle child who's real sensitive hearted, and everything was really hurting. And my parents tried to make it work. And some of the same patterns in the relationship continued. So I'm going to be just straight up with you. They were separated in our own home that we lived in for a number of years. My mom slept in a different bed than my dad. And my friends would come over to like sleep over, hang out when I was young. And I lied to them because I didn't know as a kid, what are you supposed to say?
Yeah.
Like, I didn't have a place to put it. Like, why are your parents sleeping in different beds and I just had to come up with my talk track on that.
Totally.
And so here I was. And then the gift my parents gave us in the midst of that was they got counseling, they got therapy. We had a family therapist growing up. So I believe in therapy.
Yeah.
And I believe asking the question like, hey, how about some help? I think that's one of the most powerful questions anyone could ever ask, personally and professionally. And so here I am, this happy-go-lucky kid, wear my heart on my sleeve, what had a devastating effect on me. And if it weren't for the game of basketball, I don't know what I would do. And basketball was a tremendous outlet in my life. I mean, I would go out and I would shoot around for hours just to get outside the reality of what's happening.
Totally.
And everyone has their outlets. Some are healthier than others, certainly, but that was an outlet for me. But anyway, my mom and dad gave me a gift or gave us a gift. And the gift was they actually renewed their vows, and we had like a big party. And we thought as children, things are going to be made right again. And this was after years of separation in our own home, only to find out, put it on repeat. Some of the same things continued. So living that roller coaster.
Yeah.
And I had some issues with my dad specifically that went unresolved until I really dug deep into some therapy. And now my dad, he's celebrating his 73rd birthday today. He's one of my best friends. And
brilliant.
It's amazing. And so I say that to say, of course, I never, ever would have wanted my parents to get divorced and have all the, different things associated with that. But I look now being, forgiven certain people and being healed up in certain regards. And now the perspective that I have on them, myself, and other people to help, that it certainly has helped shape me to become the person I am today, without a doubt. Like, of course, I would want my parents still to be together and enjoy a long life together, right?
Sure.
But it was what it was. And I had to go on my own journey to rediscover some things about myself, about them, and ask for help. And I'm so thankful I did, because now I have such a heart for people going through family problems.
Yes. You really understand it.
Yeah.
And I think about too, if you didn't have the help and the support and you didn't process through it and you saw somebody else going through it, it would probably zing you and be difficult to move towards somebody. Now you've built this empathy well that you live with, that you can draw from at any time because you figured out how to give it to you, which is the power. That's powerful.
That's right. No, it's so true. And, speaking to my dad, we could have people on and every home's different, and no home is perfect. And whether it's some extreme things that happened or it's some, what you would even consider subtle or smaller things that happened, for you, it was challenging, and so just everyone knowing that, hey, I've been through this, I've been through that. When you have a person that can look you in the eyes to be like, I didn't walk in your shoes, but I get you. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
sorry. I'm
Yeah.
really sorry. There's power in that vulnerability and transparency there. There's also a communal aspect to
Yes.
living it out, because we can't live that out ourselves. We need people. We need, for lack of a better term, we need an entourage of people to help and different pieces of the puzzle. Some people
Yep.
are going to come and encourage us. Some people are going to provide some counseling or therapy. Some people are going to speak to our hearts in a spiritual way. Some are going to, speak maybe truth and love in a time that we need to kind of hear that tough talk too.
Yes.
And so even if we can begin to identify one or more people in our life that are currently in our lives that can
Yeah.
help raise our arms up in a challenging time, I'll tell you, we're a rich person because of it.
That is where the richness of life comes from. That's for sure.
Yeah.
This is so good. I'm wondering, as everybody's sharing this moment with us, does anybody have any questions for Robb? We're gonna have him on here just for a few more minutes. So if you do have a question, and Sam, if you see any that I missed, feel free to jump in. I'm curious, Robb, if you had one message that you could transmit over the whole world that everybody would hear, and not just hear, but actually embody, what do you think, what would that message be?
Yeah. I would say take the time that's necessary to get to know you, and maybe even
Get to know yourself.
to get to know you for some all over again. Because if we want to discover why we exist, our big why,
Yeah.
right, that infuses us with life and purpose and passion,
Yeah.
it really begins with discovering or just rediscovering who we are.
Mm-hmm.
And there's 5 things I want to leave with people on that. Like 5 things that I've kind of realized and it's helped me in my own life. One is like visiting or revisiting, like, what are your personal core values? Like, what are the things that matter most to you? Like some people call them like strong convictions of the heart,
Mm-hmm.
to where maybe you're making decisions out of this place all day long and may not even fully realize it.
Yeah.
Second would be, take a fresh look at like your natural talents, like the things ever since you were a little boy or girl, like that just, there's an ease when you take part in this, and there's an abundance of positive fruit that comes out of it. And it's the farthest thing from work. When you do it, it's just not work. It's delight. It's pleasure. There's a lot of fruit. Third would be passion. Like, what are the things that literally have you leaping out of bed in the morning in which to accomplish?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what is it for you? Fourth, which you were asking me about, what are your most significant life milestones?
Yep.
The things really good, tremendous blessing, but maybe like extreme challenge or obstacle or barrier that came about in your life. But regardless, whether it's a total blessing or a major obstacle, it's helped shape you to become the person you are today. Like, listening to this, watching this. And the fifth and final is, what would you say your primary gift in life is? Meaning, like, you are a gift to the world that's unique apart from 7.5 billion people on the planet today.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something while you're living that people unwrap in you.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And when you're no longer here, it's a legacy you leave behind. So for instance, are you like just a gifted leader? Are you one that truly empathizes with people and can feel what they feel when they're going through something? But nonetheless, if you really take a closer look at those 5 areas, now you can be greatly encouraged and affirmed with your uniqueness and your significance. And then on the coattails of that, start asking the question like, all right, so why am I here? And start grappling with the problem that exists on the earth that maybe you're alive to help solve, and go down that road a little bit. But I think it really begins with understanding who you are. So take that time that's necessary.
That's so good. And that really is the core of your message in your book. It's the core of your inside out leadership philosophy.
Right.
This is what really drives somebody when they're aware of these pieces and they can honor them.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
That's so good. Seriously, all in, if you are a book junkie like me, and even if you aren't, you can breeze through All In. There's great examples. What Robb just talked about is actually outlined in the book too. So you can go through it at your pace, which is really helpful. I do have one question, Robb, that's coming up, and it won't surprise you and it doesn't surprise me, but how do you discern when is the right time to give grace and honor someone and give that person what they don't deserve, and when that would be harmful to you or give the wrong message that you're a doormat or a people pleaser? How do you, in that moment, discern that?
Yeah. Well, it takes practice. I mean, I'm just going to be real. It's not, it might seem like, oh my goodness, Rob, you do that with such ease, or can you do that with such ease? No, I think it's a learned thing.
Yeah.
I think it's almost like in the book, I talk about the power of intuition.
Yes.
What makes intuition so powerful isn't just, I'm just doing whatever I want, whenever I want, just feeling, because we know those nightmare stories, like I fell in love. It was a person at first, love at first sight. And then it's like, check back like 3 months later. I don't think so.
That didn't work.
Didn't work. So it's a great question.
It is.
And I really believe it comes with practice. I think as we understand more of that self-awareness piece, we understand more about who we are.
Mm-hmm.
Taking the time. Again, it gets back to more of that. Are we taking the time in our schedule, that intentional time to better get to know who we are,
mm-hmm.
learn how to be quiet, learn how to be, I know we're asking a lot, aren't we? And learn how to be. Now there becomes more of awareness of who we are and who we're not.
Mm-hmm.
In the midst of that, our ego is placed a little bit more on the side, if not, eliminated, at least to some degree.
Quieted, maybe.
Yeah, there we go. Better put. And now we start having a better awareness of the people around us as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
We start to have more of an awareness of manipulative situations, situations where, wow, okay. Like we're not caught up in it as much as we're looking at it from a higher perspective.
Like you can watch it happening, unfold.
Right.
Instead of being sucked into it.
So that self-awareness, if we take the time, again, it's a learned thing, take the time. Now all of a sudden we go into more of a subjective, into an objective place.
Mm-hmm.
And I find then we can discern much easier out of that place. Doesn't mean we're 100% accurate. It just means that our accuracy in that intuitive nature in each one of us grows. There's so many studies with intuition that are fascinating. Intuition, when you stay in your lane, everyone has a lane, right? It gets back to who you are and why you exist. I can't stray too far from my core if I try. So when you're in your lane and you know what your core is and you live life according to that, your accuracy in your intuitive self grows tremendously.
Mm-hmm.
As far as people and what they're saying and what they're not saying and what you should or shouldn't do.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the power in that comes when each person begins on a team, begins to own that themselves. And then you bring it together for the betterment of the team. Now you're hearing from this team member who's in this lane. You're hearing from another who's in a slightly different lane. And you bring them together. And now they're sensing certain things. They're discerning certain things. Not just because it's just because they've grown in maturity, spiritually, emotionally, and also in their area of expertise.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a powerful combo right there. So long-winded way to say, let's continue to take more and more time for ourselves to better get to know who we are and who we're not, and invite team members into that place as well. Mm-hmm. And I think in time, we become much more sensitive to what's going on, what's not going on, and then we can make proactive and intentional decisions based out of that place.
That is so good and so true, because we read all these leadership books. I know we do. I've got a bunch behind me. We want to take in all this information. And there is this element of just pausing.
Yeah.
And building our self-awareness, because that intuition piece, knowledge, that comes from a place that we can't clearly discern, but we've all had intuitive moments. We all have had them. Yeah. When you can crank that up, it makes all the difference in the world. And I think that makes perfect sense that, I wish we could come up like a matrix, like, is this person manipulating me, or are they, and we want to use our head and analyze it, but there's this real gut instinct that comes with our self-awareness.
Yeah, that's true. And I think, there's a role of boundaries in the midst of this. There's no doubt about it. I mean, we need, I touch on that in the book, certainly.
Yes.
We need boundaries. But boundaries, boundaries should actually cause us to engage with people even more, not less.
Boundaries aren't like go off in your cave and close the door and keep everybody away from you.
Right. Like, okay, I live in this space and no one's allowed to come into my neighborhood or my neck of the woods at all. This is
Right.
it's only meant for me. No, I mean, true boundaries in the true sense of the word is actually when we understand boundaries should always be reliant on our priorities.
Yes.
In any given season, what are our priorities? And think holistically, right? Think career, think family, think spiritual, think physical, think mentally, emotional, whatever, right? But think holistically. And we place boundaries around people and things that matter most.
Yes.
And when we do that, now it actually makes our yes be yes and our no be no based on the things and the people that matter most.
Yep.
And now listen, I always say this too, Lindsay, like as a leader, and we got a lot of leaders on this, watching this, listening to this. Okay. The more that we live our lives as leaders, people are only going to want more of our time, not less. Mm-hmm. So it's our management of our lives and our time that means the world. And so everything we're talking about as far as that discernment and having the boundaries, right? It protects us, it protects other people. And when you do have nice, healthy boundaries, that's a place of freedom and liberation in relationship, not the other way.
That's so true, because you also learn very quickly, if you're able to communicate your boundaries, you learn who respects you. And most people do respect us. Most people don't want to irritate you, ruin your day, disrespect you. I remember I was in Sedona and we were driving on this back road and it was winter and it was slushy and the road that we wanted was closed. So we said, let's just take a left here and see what happens. And we start to see this fence, this kind of rugged, southwestern fence. Oh, and I start to see some horses and I'm like, oh, I love horses. Maybe we can ride them. And we get closer and closer. Right. And the fence starts to have signs on it, private property. The next fence says, if you can read this sign, you're too close. The next fence says, this is not for visitors. Right. And on and on. And as I read the signs, I got the very clear notion that I was not wanted on the other side of that fence.
Oh dear.
And it was so easy
for
me to respect that. Now, if the fence had been broken down and it wasn't clear, y'all, I would have jumped that thing and I would have tried to touch that horse and we all know it. Okay. But when people are clear, and I'm sure this rugged cowboy is just like, get off my property, but he gets to say that it's his. Yeah. And it was so easy because he was crystal clear that I was not going to hop over. Yeah. And I think about so often when my boundaries feel pushed, I've learned to ask that question of, was I ever clear that this is a problem for me? Was I ever clear? Same. And most of the time, even though I have to I foam up and then I'm like, chill.
Right.
Actually, I don't take business calls after 7, because of the family. So, and the person's usually like, oh, totally. Yeah, no, talk to me tomorrow. This isn't even important.
Yep.
And I realized I just set myself through that whole stress cycle.
That's right.
That nobody wanted to send me through.
That's right. Well, when I think of leaders and the stress and the anxiety of, especially in the HR world, because I know you and I spend a lot of time with HR executives and leaders, is the demands and the increased responsibilities, especially in COVID times. Oh my goodness.
Impossible.
I can barely breathe, and it's just, and so you're just trying to do the best job you possibly can with what you've been given. And that's my definition of excellence, by the way. Excellence and perfection are very different. There's no such thing as perfection, but excellence is doing the best job you possibly can with what you've been given in the moment. But if you look at it, people are tugging on us in 3 specific ways. Okay. And this feeds into boundaries and everything. Number 1, people are asking for a favor. Okay. Sometimes people are asking for a favor. Other times there's a bit of an obligation there. Okay. So you kind of feel like the tug on you, like, am I obligated to kind of do this? I'm not so sure.
Yeah.
And the third is there could be this amazing opportunity. So favor, obligation, opportunity. And to say yes or no, it really depends gets back to the priorities in your life and then the boundaries that you have.
Yes.
And so for me, I say this often, Lindsay, and there's no doubt about it. I've never had greater demand on my calendar, but never been in better control of my life. And I say that being married for 16 years with 3 rambunctious kids, my wife and I are partnering homeschooling. I have tons of different business ventures. I'm completing my 3rd book now, a lot of different demands. But I turned to my wife the other day and I said,
Hmm.
this is as simple as our life's ever been, isn't it? I want to say it was like last night over the dinner table.
Wow.
And she goes, Rob, you're absolutely right. I said, because I'm making these intentional, and we're making these intentional decisions together. That for me, it's not about the money. It really isn't. Anyone that knows me, it's about protecting and guarding the things, the people that matter most, so I can dig deeper with them in relationship.
Yeah.
And for me, that means that I have to let go of other things. I have to let go of other opportunities, more lucrative things. But for me, that's okay.
Yep.
I'm at rest.
You got that clarity.
So yeah. Yep. Man,
That's
I could
brilliant.
go all day. You get me going. You're getting me going, and I'll roll.
This is so good. I mean, Rob, I really truly have half your book copied and pasted into a Word document over here that I'm constantly like pulling new pieces from. So this was so helpful. And I know that, chatting with you, this conversation is one of those conversations that keeps bumping around in the mind. And that's how you know it was done right,
Yeah.
And I'm sure that's true of all of us. And I would really encourage you to follow Rob on LinkedIn, go to his website, grab All In. It'd be awesome to read with your team. He's got another book coming out too. So we'll have to wait and see what that's about. There's a ton of ways to connect with him though. And Samantha just put his information in the chat. So click on it. Stay connected to him. I know I will. Rob, I feel so lucky that you spent time with us today to invest in us. And I can't wait to see what your next book is. I can't wait to continue to support you and just continue to shout your lessons off the rooftops.
Oh, well, listen, the joy's all mine. I mean that. The joy's totally all mine. I've, as we've gotten to know each other at least a little bit leading up to this, and certainly a whole lot more throughout it. And I have so many questions for you. That's why I'm looking forward to getting to know Lindsay that much better. I'm like, oh, I got to hear about this drumming. I got to hear about like some of your challenges and how you overcame them, because what I'm hearing and what I'm coming across, the world needs to hear your message now more than they ever have before. And so just the fact that I'm on your show and you're interviewing me, the questions that you're asking and your interest level, you are as hungry as they come. You have a message, like I'm talking megaphone that the world needs to hear. And I know you have a sphere of influence that is growing by every day. Mm-hmm. And I just see a place for you of greater and greater influence. And it's almost like, because now the world's ready to hear you.
Thank you for saying that.
I'm so thankful for who you are and the message that you are to the world. So thank you.
Thank you for saying that. That means a ton. Yeah. And I feel the shift in the world, to your point. I feel a shift coming, and I just feel really lucky to have these types of moments, that refresh us all. And it means a lot to hear that from you, because I know you've been at it for a long time. So thank you so much, Rob. I'm gonna be, I'll be on your LinkedIn probably later today, and I'll put a summary of what we talked about today on LinkedIn too, so everybody can hear the highlights of it. If you want to watch us or send it to your team, it'll be on YouTube probably by the end of this week. And so if you just need a pep talk, if you like to run like Rob likes to run, which is just crazy, if you love to do that though, put your earphones in, you can take it with you. I know that this gave me a ton of energy, totally made my day. Rob, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Hey, until next time, we'll see you.
Yes. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.